The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 2, Castle. Chapter 17.
You must answer my questions to begin with, Sushin said. You were climbing the outside of the Red Tower, and you fell. Yet here you are. How? Who helped you? The Ice Carls, Tal told him. Sushin sighed, and his spirit shadow loomed threateningly over the edge. I want the names of the chosen, said the Shadow Master. Not stories, and not your senile great-uncle Ebbitt. Someone helped you escape the Red Tower. Someone with real power. Someone hid you these last few weeks. Tell me their names. No one, replied Tal. I was taken by the wind, far from the castle. The Ice Carls found— I said I do not want stories, shouted Sushin. He raised his hand, and a bolt of concentrated light shot out, striking the corner of the mattress, setting it alight. Tal rolled away, covering his eyes with his forearm. His shadow guard scuttled after him, spreading itself wide to shield him from the attack. As Tal rolled, he saw Sushin throw another bolt. His spirit shadow was behind him, its claws striking at the air, its huge, fanged mouth snapping as if it might already have Tal in its jaws. Tal suddenly realized that Sushin's spirit shadow shouldn't be a fanged claw beast. Last time he'd seen Sushin, his spirit shadow had a domed shell and a long, flat head. Spirit shadows could stretch and spread, but they couldn't completely change shape. So, Sushin must have gotten a completely new spirit shadow. He must have gone into Einar before the day of Ascension. That was totally forbidden. For a very long minute, Sushin threw bolts of white-hot light down at Tal. The boy ducked and weaved, but in the narrow confines of the pit he knew he would be hit soon. His shadow guard had already deflected one bolt, and now had a rip through its shadow flesh that would take days to heal. Finally, Sushin calmed down, and the bolts stopped. Tal stopped running, though his body was still tense to jump aside. Who is the girl who was captured with you? Sushin demanded. Where did she steal her weapon? Are there other Underfolk who helped you? Her name is Mila, said Tal. He didn't know how to answer the other questions. Clearly Sushin thought that Tal had used light magic to fly down the Red Tower, and then had hidden with renegade Underfolk in the lower levels. She's an Ice Carl! He shouted, jumping away from the expected bolt of light. But Sushin didn't raise his hand. He said, The pit is a good place to think, Tal. You should remember that the only way out is to give the right answers to me. He turned to leave. Tal sighed with relief and looked down. In that instant, Sushin turned back and fired a final bolt. It struck the ground at Tal's feet, sparks flying up to strafe his legs. He was knocked down, his shadow guard cushioning his fall. On his back, with his shadow guard under him, Tal could only look up as Sushin pointed his sunstone ring hand at him. He lay there, waiting for the killing bolt, but Sushin only laughed and turned away. This time, he did not come back. Tal lay there for a long time, until his shadow guard crept out from under him and started tugging at his foot. Warily, the boy sat up and looked at his legs. The bolt had burned all the fur off his leggings, revealing the hide underneath. Sparks had burned through to scorch his skin in a few places, but it wasn't serious. Tal laughed. A month ago he would have gone straight to bed for a week with these tiny burns. Now he had grown closer to Ice Carl standards. The burns were annoying. Nothing more. Getting to his feet, he went over to the water basin, stripped off his furs, and washed himself as best he could. He kept the clothes close, in case he heard Sushin returning. Tal was just slipping his leggings back on when he heard footsteps again. Quickly, he threw on his coat and retreated to the far side. But it wasn't Sushin. Or at least, it didn't sound like him. Whoever it was didn't slide his or her feet. Again,
It didn't sound like a guard's heavy boots. Tal tensed as a shadow slid over the rim of the pit. Then he relaxed. It was a natural shadow, and the person who cast it was close behind, in the white robe of an Underfolk. An old woman, Tal saw, though she didn't meet his eyes. She knelt at the edge of the pit and carefully lowered a basket down on a very thin rope, sufficient to support the basket, but not Tal if he tried to grab it. When the basket hit the bottom, she kept lowering, till the hook on the rope swung clear, and she hauled it back up again very quickly. Stale bread, Tal thought gloomily. The Underfolk woman pointed at it and said something very quietly, and then she quickly walked away. It wasn't until she'd gone that Tal managed to work out that she'd said, "Compliments of your great-uncle." Even with those words, Tal waited until he could no longer hear footsteps. Then he went over to the basket and lifted its lid. Delightful aromas escaped, and Tal's mouth was suddenly no longer dry. There was half a fresh-baked pie, spiced with mannaha sprigs, and 2 seed cakes. A stone bottle contained cold sweet water. Even though he was suddenly hungry, it was not the food and drink that most attracted Tal's attention. In one corner of the basket there was a clump of pages. Judging from the torn stitching and absence of binding, it had been ripped from the middle of a book. Tal picked it up and saw that he only held a few chapters. It started at page 173 and ended in mid-sentence on page 215. The first line was, "On making a stairway of light."